right, welcome back in another episode of Indiebnb. Today I'm joined by Lisa Molinaro from beautiful Portland, Oregon. Lisa, how is 5 o'clock out there?
Hey, it's pretty hot actually. We go through more and more heat waves seemingly each year, so we're in the middle of one. So it's beautiful. I live in a sort of a shady little cove, so it's not too bad. But yeah, Portland's beautiful, just beautiful.
I love it. I mean, you guys have it's the keep Portland weird is the saying, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it lives up to its reputation. But come visit, like to all who have never been, come and see for yourself. It's a very pleasant place.
Yeah, Oregon's one I've wanted to get out to. Big college football fan. Would love to go to see a stadium at the Autzen and do the whole thing. So
yes, Oregon has a lot to offer in a short distance. You can do a lot. Yeah,
I love it. Well, you've got a long journey. Kind of, you've got a solo project that's yet to be released. It'll be released on the date of this recording on the 17th. But as you guys are hearing it today, it's been out for a little bit, and obviously go stream that and go take give it a listen. But please talk about your journey as we've gotten to this point. I mean, you've had a lot of different experiences in this business.
Yeah, I have. I have always considered myself a musician, first and foremost, just someone who puts forth music, whether it's my own or somebody else's. I mean, I grew up as a classically trained violist, and I played piano. So I think my formative years doing it like that, I didn't separate the notion of like being a musician but playing somebody else's music, right? Mm-hmm. So you're playing like the big ones, you're playing Beethoven, or maybe you're playing Mozart, or some Philip Glass or somebody like that. You are their vessel, right? And I think that is equally as important. And I think I kind of kept in that role for a long time in being like a supportive member of bands, and all the while kind of having a little kernel of creativity, like my own thing that I was like wanting to nurture. And like, for whatever reason, I'm like at 50 years old, which I am, I'm not interested in like tearing that apart anymore and figuring out why I waited this long. It's here, right? So, getting to this point where I'm putting out my own stuff, it was just like the time was right. The time was right. I felt it was shaping up, and then suddenly, almost in like a moment, I knew I was making a record, and we could talk about that later. But never did I feel like I was, incomplete, right? So I got to play in front of huge audiences, which is thrilling. I think first and foremost, I said I was a musician, but I'm kind of a performer. Like I like being on the stage and doing that music, right? So I got to kind of tick off a lot of boxes, to being like sort of an arm, like an accessory to other machines. It was really gratifying, and we could kind of talk about how I ended up becoming a solo artist.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'm curious about as you go into a symphony hall and you're in the classically trained mindset, and then you walk out onto a rock and roll stage. Like, how different is it? Obviously you're in different states of your life and your journey, but like, when you think about doing one of those things, which one I guess gets you more? I want to say nervous, but maybe excited. Which one excites you more? Which one is, obviously probably different emotions, but what's the dichotomy look like that,
Yeah, it's a great question because they're different. Definitely more nervous if you want to talk about being like anxious going on stage in a classical setting. Yeah. Typically, it's more challenging just from a technical standpoint. And so there's that kind of like energy, that nervous energy. And then there is a nervous energy walking on to stage where you just walk up and start playing, right? But that's more of like in modern music and rock music, you're putting on a performance. Mm-hmm. And so there's a little bit of like kind of a it's not a mask or a disguise, but it's kind of like a uniform you put on, right? And you're performing, you're playing these songs you've done over and over and over again, and you're trying to find something new each and every time in them. And you're also like, I'm performing for these people. They want to see and hear a good time. None of that's disingenuous, right? But it's just it's a little more like predictable. It's like a tiny bit easier is not quite the right word, right? But you can get into like a role. There's no role when you're playing a really complicated symphony or something that needs like a lot of your attention, you know, and all the things that you've worked on up until that point. So they are different, but they also do have that kind of thrill. You know, I get a thrill from both. As a viola, typically you play like in the middle of the orchestra pit, or like the ensemble. So you're kind of balanced by, you've got some violins on one side, you have the cellos on one side, you have French horn and like oboe and bassoon right behind you. You're in the middle of everything. So the cool thing about that is like you hear everybody, which is super amazing. Like I've experienced euphoria playing, and this was in college, you know, I played in symphonies, and I experienced like euphoria I've never really felt since. And I think that's because you can be completely immersed, you know, and it's also the same when your music's really, really loud on stage. So forget what I just said.
I like it. I mean, I think there's, you know, I'm sure that there are elements of each thing that you've done that now lead us to, you know, where we are today, where you're, hey, I've been a part of a big machine, you know, obviously, you know, you mentioned it earlier, and it's, you know, Modest Mouse is, you know, a machine, right? Like, it's like, hey, this is you know, there have been multiple members of the band. It's, you know, it's been touring for many, many years. Like, you know, I can see how, you know, where does it get to a point where you're like, you know what, I think this is my time to, you know, brig out and kind of begin to write my own. And you know, you mentioned the kernel. I guess, when did the kernel pop? And we're starting to get the popcorn, you know, for you. Like,
yeah, the pop. It had been heating up for a while, you know. I have been writing my own stuff since I was like 22, maybe. And I recorded it, you know. I have really wonderful, like, Tascam recordings of me in my closet with my guitar and singing and layering some harmonies and maybe putting a little viola in here and there. So I've had that kernel for a really long time, and, you know, it took a little bit of, like, let's just keep going with this metaphor, fire under my you-know-what to, like, make me do something. I do like to work in a structured environment. I will admit that, and I like to work under pressure. I don't like it, but I just perform better under pressure, and I will stop procrastinating when I'm under that, right? So, you know, everybody experienced the pandemic, and this feels like maybe it was a long time ago, but it's when it happened. So, you know, that shut everything down. I no longer was touring with Modest Mouse. Everything I kind of knew up until then in terms of my musical identity, like, had suddenly just kind of, like, dropped. And I had to take a really hard look at myself and say, like, who are you? Like, who, you know, like, you identify with all these other things, but, like, who are you? And that's, I think, when it started, when I had to get through a little bit of, like, painful self-realizations. And I mean painful in that, like, there's maybe you come across in yourself personality traits or maybe acts or behaviors that you're not super proud of, right? They're not necessarily evil or mean or anything, but I found some of those, you know, and instead of just looking away, and I kind of just, like, faced them, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think I matured a lot. I think I actually did do a lot of, like, growth during that period. And it's, I think, what gave me a little more courage. Yeah, and, like, we can go into the score, but writing the score at the tail end of the pandemic also helped kind of, like, propel. I was already writing the record, but then I had to stop and I wrote the score, and it was just like, just like helped kind of, like, send me into a more confident space to write a solo album.
Yeah, talk me through the score and kind of, like, you know, we mentioned before this, like, you know, your colleague Jim, who also was a part of Modest Mouse, coincidentally, who's also been on the show, is into that, scoring piece. And like, with your background, it seems like that, is something that you could, obviously you've been around it, in the sense of playing, others, but like, how'd you take on that challenge, like writing the score and talk me through the creative process there?
Yeah. Shout out to Jim. We were in the band for all the same time, I guess. Well, he was in it before me, but I played many, many shows next to him. What a consummate guitarist and a great composer himself. So, we chatted a little bit about that stuff too. I didn't know what I was doing. I really had no idea, even though I knew, let's call it classical music, right? So I knew orchestrated music in that I played it. So I was very familiar with how it's built. But coming up with it on your own is a different story. The producer and director asked me to write their score, and they had really, really big ideas. And, that's awesome. Huge inspirations, right? You had big Hollywood blockbuster kind of style music they wanted. And I loved that stuff growing up, right? Like the John Williams and other types of real big orchestra sounds. But I had no idea how to do it. And there is no other way to do it than to just start, right? Get familiar with your setup, get familiar with how you are going to map out your different sounds. Start with maybe a theme or a melody, work that melody into the movie a lot if you can, and then just keep building on top of that. It's like you're kind of you have this ice cream cone, the ones that the Dairy Queens where they dip it, and you have a magic shell, and you're like, that's cool, but what if I did another magic shell with peanut butter and then another magic shell? You're just layering and layering to get all this goodness on it. And that's kind of just what I was doing. And now I look back and it's really hard to understand what I did. There's so many people out there. I don't rise above composers. This is my first one. But I am proud of it. I think I was able to meet their needs, and it was a comedy. So they needed scenes for a haunted house. They wanted music for a haunted house scene. They wanted music for a car chase. They needed kind of noir music, sort of just jazzy noir stuff. They also were hoping to get John Hughes sort of 80s style stuff. So that was one of the most fun parts of scoring, was being okay, this time it's not all the same. I can switch gears entirely. I can start playing with this piano part. I can start playing with this 80s synth and these beats, So lucky for me, because I get bored with things really quickly, doing the same thing for forever. So it suited me well.
I mean, you've got such a diverse instrumental background. How that had to have played an extremely big part in being able to kind of deliver on all those different types of sounds, right? If you're strictly classically trained guitarist versus it seems like you've got a little bit of everything to be able to kind of deliver on those things. How did that kind of play into your the scoring part?
Perhaps. I think that's possibly true. I know people who have played guitar and they can, let me just say, I do play a few instruments, right? And I think it's really important that I started with piano. I think this is a very useful one to begin with, just because you can kind of have multiple voices going on with both hands, right? And I would say, if I know how a sound comes in and out, let's call it we talked about an oboe earlier or something, or a clarinet or something. I mean, I just have experience hearing it, from many different styles. So I don't know how to play that. I cannot even I can't put out a single note on the clarinet, but I'm used to how it appears, right?
Right.
And maybe I tapped into that, and string sections, I mean, it's they add so much. And if I can play viola, it means I can play high enough to sound like a violin. and not quite low enough to sound like a cello, but I can almost get there. So like the viola is this middle instrument that is able to encompass a pretty wide range of like the string sound, and I think that also can help. So if I'm like writing a line and I want to rewrite, I want to put a violin line over it, I don't have to go grab the violin. I can just play the viola and play the violin part on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there were a couple like sort of like tricks up my sleeve, if you will.
I love it. I love it. Well, this builds all the confidence, for you to, begin to release music, in the more, I guess not traditional sense, but more, hey, we're making, rock and roll, we're making the, that type of sound. So like, Ending Never Stops, Blind Trust, like, how do we get here, right? Like when, I think we mentioned before, there's, a few events that happen, which, we don't need to dive into. I'm sure there's a lot that you drove from, but, when we come out of the score, like, we're like, all right, we've got all this confidence. Like, take me through how we started on, where the album start and where are we at, obviously, with the third single released already.
Some of these songs are pretty old, in the sense that I was writing them during the pandemic.
Okay.
On the onset, when we weren't sure what was happening, and some songs are actual, like a bit of a reworking of maybe just like the lyrics, right? Or like a little part from another song. I don't view those things as like, oh, you put them out, they weren't like complete, keep going. There is a time and a place for that. But if something is stuck in your mind, like I wrote these like 30-second demos, and I could not let them go. So that's how one of the, some of the songs were formed, from these like nuggets, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly like really wasn't very confident up until, all the way up until like studio time. Like I did all of this alone. So I'm in my studio, I'm doing what I think is great, and then all of a sudden you gotta like step out in the world and other people have to hear it. And you're like, whoa, what does this sound like? How does this body of work gonna come across, And I would say going into the studio is when like the confidence was really, I went in like pretty aware that I had enough good stuff to make a record. Otherwise I wouldn't have gone into the studio and spent the money, right? But it was in the studio making the songs that was like really cemented it for me. There was like, I had experienced some loss, and, people I loved very much in my life passing on, and some expected and some completely unexpected, and also sort of my own innate sort of like almost sickening fear of death. I don't like to think of it. Who really does? But that, to talk about the ending never stops, I decided to write a song about it so that I could maybe get a little more familiar, a little more comfortable with the notion of like, you don't really have a choice anyway, so might as well sit with death and like maybe get to know it a little bit, right?
Interesting. You mentioned that, that particular track, like, that's kind of the genesis, but give me the nuts and bolts of it, right? Like, how do we start, how does it become, from nothing to something? What is
talking about like the songwriting?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, started with arpeggiated guitars. Like the song starts with like a bunk 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 bunk, and I wanted this like kind of creeping vibe. Not creepy, but I liked the creeping sort of feel. I wanted to set like a little bit of an eerie tone, and there's like some pitch bending that happens, and the guitar sort of starts over, and then I was playing with sounds that were like sort of mechanical, but yeah, I would say mechanical, like these kind of like blips and winding sort of sounds, and then this sort of this like backwards sort of that comes in really late, but it's like still on time somehow. So it was just kind of like weird, but also you kind of wanted to sort of start groove into it, like nodding your head to it, and I wanted to keep it like that until I felt it was time to like open it up a little, and that's when I added like some really warm synth tones, harmonies, more major chords, things like that, So it definitely started with like this like really bass, just very like almost skeletal kind of like bass and glitchy sort of sounds, along with this like purposeful, weird, out of tune, looping guitar sound, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my vocals, I keep throughout the whole record pretty understated. They're intimate and they're a little, like they're controlled. And that there's a design for that. Like that, it was purposeful because I want you to like kind of put your ear in a little bit and listen. You know, I think it maybe, hopefully, makes the listener kind of focus a little more.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, you know, for you, when you're going in, like, is there any point when you're in the studio and you're kind of like, there's a 1,000 different knobs and different things you can do in there? Like, is there any point it's like, you know, do you put it all in and then take things out, or are you a layering kind of person?
I'm layering. I don't like edits. I don't like taking stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of the work before arriving at the studio. So I had lots of time to sit with it and handed it over to the engineer and to Zach Bloomstein. And we also added lots of things. Dustin Dibvig, who played drums on my record, is also an incredibly talented musician with a really keen ear, and he helped create a little bit of that sort of depth in some of the like little kind of sprinkles of sound that you hear in some of the songs. And I had pretty tight control of the reins for this record, but for the end, like zhuzhing, you know, I kind of like let go a little bit. I was just like, I can always like say no. I can always naysay the version, right? The comp that comes out. But I pretty much didn't. Whatever came to me with the little extra, we'll call them sprinkles, right? The little bit of glitter. I was like so impressed, because a little can go a long way with that kind of stuff. So I think I answered your question there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you know, on Blind Trust, like I know it's like trying to pick, a particular, your favorite food or something like that, but like, what's got you the most excited? You know, do you have a particular track you're most excited for people to hear? Is there something, you can pick the overall whole thing, but you know, what's the thing got you most fired up?
Well, I was very excited to put out the first single, We All Get Stuck. That one I felt had to be the first song, but I was nervous that it wouldn't be like the right first song, you know, like what's going to grab people right away. And I should have just, and I did believe in myself. I put it out as the first song, and I think I did it for the right reason, because it got a very warm reception. It's just a song that kind of cooks, you know, and then there is an opening at the end that provides a bit of catharsis for all of the accumulation of feelings, you know. And you know, I've talked about this, that I feel like that was like has become sort of the cornerstone of the album for me. It's a song, when I finished writing it, I was like, oh, okay, like you actually do know how to write songs. That's a really good song. You now have a record forming. So it's my baby. I think it's like one of my favorites. And it's funny because now that it's out, I'm like, oh, that's old. I need a new song. What's my new favorite song? So I'm just excited for people to hear the rest of it, because one song to the next is kind of a journey. Like, you don't really know where you're going to go. That being said, I feel like there's a thread that is woven through it all, so you're not going to get lost. I think you're just going to be like on a trip, right? And then some songs that might surprise you, like, and I'm looking forward to hearing what songs surprised people, you know.
I love it. What as this comes, this is already out, so everybody can literally go take the trip right after you turn this off and go enjoy Blind Trust on the places you find music. But what post this release on on Friday of this week, what's in the cars? Do we have a tour? Do we have other things? Are we scoring more stuff? Talk me through the next part of this.
Yeah, I've been kind of sitting back in the classical kind of zone again, and so I've been playing more piano. I'm trying to learn some pieces that are like immensely difficult for me, and that's really refreshing. So it's nice to just sit and be like, oh yeah, you like have a lot to learn still, right?
Yeah.
And I've dug up some quartet music that I started a while back that I never finished, and I do feel like just like some of these songs that are out now, you know, had really great beginnings. This quartet, I feel, has a really good beginning. It's a string quartet, and I want to continue that. I just feel like if I can dig deeper into that type of music writing, I think it'll only benefit like what happens in other worlds. There's no tour set for right now. There are no shows scheduled. That doesn't mean that wouldn't happen. My idea, I just like think really big. So my idea to go really big for a show needs some planning. So I'll be sure to let you know if that starts to get off the ground, you know.
I love it. Well, we look forward to that, and hopefully a stop in Atlanta so we can go experience it and see the piece de resistance.
I hope to display the grandeur.
I love it. Well, a little bit of grandeur here to close us out. The Pete Peterson party pack of questions. It's a rapid fire, 20 questions right in a row. Totally forgot to warn you about it before the show, so we're going to see how you do.
Yeah, you did.
Here we go. Pete Peterson's party pack. Lisa Molinaro, cake or pie?
Cake.
She's caking it up. I like it. All right, salad or soup?
Salad.
All right. Sunrise or sunset? What are you seeing more of these days?
Sunset.
Sunset. All right, golden hour. Here we go. All right. Would you rather hit a home run or score a touchdown?
Touchdown.
Touchdown. All right. Teeter. Let's go. Night in or night out? What are you having more of these days?
Oh, night in. Yeah.
All right. When you do go out and your jam comes on, more likely to hit the robot or the worm on the dance floor?
Robot. No more worm for me. I'd break a bone.
The worm is gone. All right. Guac or queso? Your favorite Tex-Mex spot?
I like guac. Yeah.
All
And
right.
Tex-Mex is hard to find here in Portland, so send some my way.
We need some more. We need some more chips and salsa restaurants in Portland. All right, good to know. There's an open opportunity there. All right, waffles or pancakes?
Oh gosh, pancakes. Waffles get too dry too quickly.
Okay. All right. Coffee or tea with your pancakes?
Coffee every day.
All right. Dogs or cats?
Dogs right now.
Dogs now. Okay. Do you identify more with a ninja or a pirate?
A pirate.
All right. Let's go. All right. Chips or pretzels?
Oh, chips.
Let's get into chips.
Yeah,
I
the
like it.
saltier and the fattier, the better.
I love it. All right. Fries or tots?
Can we talk about this?
We can.
No, if it's rapid fire, I'm going to say fries, French fries.
We'll come back to that. TV show or movie after a long day?
TV show for sure.
All right. Are aliens real?
Why not? Yes.
I like it. If you were a fruit, what kind of fruit would you be?
I'm going to say papaya. Because I didn't discover papayas until much later, and they're really great. So it's kind of what I think I might hopefully be to somebody.
Settle your stomach, eat a papaya. I like it.
Yeah.
Is love at first sight real?
I don't think so. No.
All right.
Maybe love it like 5 minutes.
Love it 5 minutes. I like it. Love it 5 minutes. Good song title. You can have that one.
Thank you.
All right, and give us two bands that we ought to check out that we might not know.
My goodness. I never know how to pronounce the name. It's Die Spitz or D Spitz. Really rocking.
They just
band.
were here, and I missed them.
Oh yeah, really
bummer.
good. Yeah. And let's see. I've been listening to, if you don't know Drug Church, I've been listening to a lot of Drug Church. They kind of they'll get you going if you're at the gym.
Okay. Di Spitz, Drug Church. Those are Lisa Molinaro picks. She has conquered the Pete Peterson party pack of questions. Obviously, everyone needs to go check out Blind Trust. Go stream it on all the platforms. Follow Lisa on all on the social areas. I will have that linked as well and everywhere. And Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time on this lovely Wednesday evening.
What a pleasure. Thank you so much, Grant.
Of course.